303-777-4276. Or visit GamecocksOnline.com/GamecockClub. Renew or join today. Your support of Gamecocks truly makes a difference. It's the number one rated used car dealer in Milwaukee. The number one Toyota certified dealer. The number one Lexus certified dealer. The number one Audi certified dealer. And on and on and on. Shop over 600 used vehicles and save 30 to 50% in depreciation at all 6 Jim Hudson locations. Here's his watch, and you'll never forget.
Yeah, I can call that together.
You good?
You can hear me all right, right?
Ready to go?
You can hear me all right, yes?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
You can hear me?
I got the background noise is a little loud, but yeah.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me? Will, can you hear me? Yo, Will, can you hear me? Check, 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 check.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hello, hello, hello.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me? Will, can you hear me? 1 2 1 2.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me? 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Play some music or something so I can hear that. Is that better?
Can you hear me now?
Try me now.
Can you hear me now? Check one, check
yes,
one.
Yes, I
There you
can.
go.
I don't know what the deal is.
30 seconds, man.
All right.
wonder if you ask yourself, is it just me?
It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a basketball Tuesday night here in the states of South Carolina. USC and Clemson both in action. The Gamecocks are at home tonight to take on Auburn. SEC match at 6:30. Clemson down in Tallahassee to take on Florida State. ACC battle coming up at 7 o'clock. Looking forward to keeping you up to date on those games and talking about those games tonight. Plus, so much more. USC has filled its defensive line coaching position. Talk about the addition of John Scott Jr. to the Gamecock coaching staff. We'll have a recruiting update for you as we continue to attract those guys who remain uncommitted and who are looking to sign on the dotted line. 2 weeks from tomorrow is the February signing date. And so we're just down to a few guys who are still out there that Clemson and South Carolina are messing with. And so we'll update everything that's happening there. Phil Kornbluth and the Professor Tom Hayes here at our studios in downtown Columbia with Brian Leonard. Will Pelagic is over at the Colonial Life Arena for South Carolina and Auburn. We'll get to him in just a moment. Our phone number is 800-956-7266. I know we didn't get to as many calls last night as we wanted to. Some of you just did not show the patience and the conviction to be on this program, and thus you were not rewarded with airtime. Tonight, have a feeling we'll have plenty of time for your phone calls and plenty of room. So dial us up, 800-956-7266. As you're headed home tonight across the state, we thank you for choosing Sports Talk. We have a lot of choices out there. We always are appreciative of you joining us. And remember, when you get home, if you lose us over the airwaves, you can find us with the various ways that we stream the show, both on our website, on Twitter, and from our stations who are streaming on the TuneIn app, as well as the radio.com app. And leave your radio station set right where it is, so when you hop in the car tomorrow morning, you'll be tuned in to one of our great affiliates to take you through the day, and you can rejoin us tomorrow night. So all that being said, let's head over to the Colonial Life Arena. South Carolina hopes to bounce back from a disappointing performance on the road at LSU. And Auburn was at home on Saturday, had a really tough battle with Kentucky, closed the big gap down to just a bucket, I think it was, ended up losing by 2 to the Wildcats. So a tough loss for Auburn, which is expected to be a team to contend for the SEC championship and to make a run in the NCAA tournament. Will is over there. So, last night, Will, you were there for the USC women and Missouri, and it was it appeared to be a very rowdy house. Gamecock fans really behind their team and pushing their team to a dominating victory over the Missouri Tigers. And so the hope would be that the men would draw a similar type crowd, especially with the students back in town, and they'd have a very rowdy house tonight.
Well, it's the polar opposite, Corn. It's empty, predictable, though, with the way that it is a 6:30 tip on a weeknight here during the week. Really bad look for the SEC, giving the Gamecocks 2 really good opponents at home during the week and 2 6:30 tips, because they're going to have the same dilemma next week when they play Tennessee with another 6:30 tip here, when they really could use a very big and rowdy crowd here at Colonial Life Arena. But you're right, they do need a bounce-back game for the Gamecocks after that disappointing output at LSU. Chris Silva should at least have some better opportunities today. You mentioned Austin Wiley from Auburn is not going to play. The 6'11 stalwart inside, at least leave them only with Anthony McLemore and Chuma Okeke to be basically the main post presences for the Tigers. They will be more of an up-and-down, run-the-floor team instead of a post-up type team like South Carolina is from that perspective. So from that perspective, you look at Silva as possibly having a good bounce-back game. This team really didn't play well in any facet on Saturday against LSU. Mike Kotsar, since that game he had against Mississippi State, has not looked like he's been in form. And really, from the standpoint of where South Carolina sits, A.J. Lawson was really the only player who had a pulse. So Frank Martin expecting a bounce back, but from that standpoint, South Carolina needs just a win in the worst way because they have a tough output against a tough matchup coming up on Saturday against Oklahoma State. And then they also have, of course, as we mentioned, Tennessee coming here for their next home game.
Well, you're saying Wiley is out, but I tell you what, the key point to remember about Auburn last year when they had a breakout year, they played so well playing small ball. I think this year they're a good team, but you can tell they're still feeling their way out, trying to deal with a post presence on offense. So this may be a dangerous game for South Carolina because this team may revert to what they did last year. And that's just throw it up and say, hey, let's see who gets the ball and hits the most threes. And that's a dangerous formula for South Carolina defensively.
And that's the thing, too, Pro. I mean, Auburn doesn't really care how they score it. They've got two very athletic backcourt guys in Jared Harper and Bryce Brown. They shoot it well from distance. They're one of the best effective field goal percentage teams, according to Ken Palm. They're 10th in the country in adjusted efficiency on offense. The one thing that they do not do well is defend the three, and they also are bad at fouling and also getting to the foul line. So from that standpoint, those are things where South Carolina will have to take advantage. Of course, South Carolina themselves has not necessarily been the most consistent team from the perimeter, and so they'll need to at least try and find some sort of outside scoring, especially if Silva has the same kind of troubles he had against LSU, because as you know, the real big key is how this game will be called. That's the one thing that South Carolina has really no control over. When they've called games tight, South Carolina has not had the ability to match that intensity.
And another big key will be the play of the backcourt, because Auburn has a very good backcourt and a couple of guys that have played a lot of basketball together, and that's a concern for Frank Martin heading into tonight's ball game. And again, Auburn still ranked in the top 20, 15 and 16 in the polls this week, coming off a loss at home to Kentucky, 82-80. Prior to that, they had blown out Georgia and Texas A&M in a very impressive fashion. Their other league loss to Ole Miss, 82-67 on the road. So they are 2-2 in league play. South Carolina comes in at 4-1 in league play. As far as Clemson and Florida State, the Tigers had plenty of time to get ready for this one, Pro. They played last on the 16th, and so that was that win over Georgia Tech. They got off to the great start, built the big lead, saw it whittled to 5, came out in the second half, put a nice run on the court once again, and went on to a 12-point win. They're facing a Florida State team that just played up in Boston on Sunday afternoon, and they're playing a Florida State team which was ranked as high as number 11. They have lost 3 straight, including 2-pointer at home to Duke, 13 points on the road at Pitt, and then 5 points on the road at Boston College. So they're in a bit of a slide, and this will be you got to like the fact that Clemson should be well rested, have its legs under them, and Florida State, are they a little road weary? They're also a bit of a desperate team.
Yeah, that's what scares me about this game for Clemson. You've got a wounded animal that's coming into Tallahassee, and they have tremendous height. It's almost, you look at Florida State, they have about seven footers sitting over on the end of the bench. For some reason, they love that length defensively. Clemson has to watch out and be careful with the basketball, because what Florida State wants to do is when they're winning, they're playing a lot of defense. They're deflecting a lot of passes with their length, both in the backcourt and front court, and they'll turn you over. So when you look at this game, if Clemson can keep the turnovers within 12 or lower, they win this ball game. If that turnover starting to build to 15 to 16 to 20, then Clemson's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, they've got to get some help off their bench too. It's a short bench that Brad Brownell is playing with, and those who do get in, they've got to contribute, take some of the pressure and some of the time off of the 5 Ironmen who are playing most of the time for the Tigers. Clemson has lost 3 consecutive games to Florida State in Tallahassee, so they'll be trying to break that streak. And, of course, Florida State, with the exception of that loss to Duke, has been pretty tough at home over the recent years, as Hamilton has built that program into a a top 25 program. In fact, they're just outside the top 25 this week. The AP had him at 26, and the coaches had him at 23. So from that standpoint, they're still in it. And we'll be back here on Sports Talk on this basketball Tuesday night.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Another Gamecock is in that transfer portal, or as I like to call it, the college football portal, John. You like that? I just came up with that the other day, the portal, John.
Oh.
Well, that's where you go to dispose of things. The portal, John.
Yeah, but I was
Brian likes it. He's trying not to smile. I know deep down he likes that.
I'm thinking in terms of something else. a lot of people are not.
Let me say who it is, though. I just
Huh.
put it out there. Now, you can't
Okay.
interrupt me. Those who don't know, Tyson Williams,
Yes.
the running back, which, I'm a little surprised about that. This is the 5th Gamecock to go into the portal, John, and that's a pretty good number, I think. I don't know how that compares across the country. It's got it right up there among the most in the portal, John.
You're going to count the walk-on as one, too? Or?
Well, he's in there.
Okay.
It says South Carolina by his name, even though he was a walk-on. And, of course, Shameik Blackshear's already found a new home. He's
TCU.
the one that's gone, TCU. And, of course, Javon Charleston, right?
Charlton.
Yeah, Charleston. No, that's the punter.
Charleston.
Charleston, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'm getting him confused with the incoming freshman at Clemson. He had no choice because his clock at South Carolina had run out, so he had to depart. So it's really, got the other 3 now. So Tyson Williams, I guess he just looked at the running back room and saw all those people in there, none of whom get a lot of carries. And you got another running back coming in this class. And so it's going to be a very crowded situation. And on the one hand, hate to see him leave because he's an in-state kid. South Carolina took him when he was looking to transfer out of North Carolina. He was able to pay his own way for a year on the GI Bill because his mom's in the military. And it meant a lot to him to come to South Carolina and come back to the state. They recruited him out of high school, out of Crestwood, I believe it was. And it's funny, they took Mon Denson ahead of him.
Ding, 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 ding.
And so he goes to North Carolina, doesn't work out there, comes back to South Carolina. And now Mon Denson kind of emerged as their go-to running back in the latter part of the season. But it's a crowded running back room. You heard what Thomas Brown said to the media in his lone interview on the Sunday that they made him available. He said it was an underachieving group of running backs. And he likes to have one guy tote the mail for the most part. That's what he was when he was at Georgia. And I agree with that. You got to find a guy and let him be your horse. He's got to be good, of course. You just can't, throw a mule back there and expect to have, secretariat. But, one guy told me who knows something about football and who's watched South Carolina closely, the one thing in this person's opinion that's keeping South Carolina from moving up is that stud running back. That guy who can take it 20, 25 times, who can stay on his feet, who can break tackles, and who has the speed to run away from defenders. They do not have that elite level running back. They've got a bunch of workman-like running backs.
And you can win with that, quite frankly.
Can you?
Yes, you can.
I don't know.
Yes, you can.
I don't know that you can.
Because think about when Alabama won that championship, the first one against Clemson. They didn't have a breakaway back.
Breakaway or great? Well. Now wait a minute. You mean in 2016?
Yeah, they didn't have a break. They had a big back that would run over people. But
he's wait a minute. Now you're talking about the dude
Henry.
Yeah. Wait a minute, pro. He's a great running back.
But he's not a breakaway back.
Well, I'm not just talking about he was fast enough and you couldn't tackle him.
Plus, here's the one other thing he couldn't do that probably he could do at Alabama, but nowhere else. And here's where South Carolina's a problem. They don't have he wasn't a good pass receiver coming out of the backfield. That's why you saw Alabama not throw a lot of swing passes when he was in a football game. Tyson Williams runs tough when he wants to. Unfortunately for him, and you don't want to blame the kid, but his motor runs hot and cold. There are some games when I'm just not in it today. Mon Denson runs hard, and people
runs in a straight line.
Some people say he doesn't have a lot of wiggle. Yeah. I don't worry about that.
Well,
what I worry about is he doesn't catch the ball. Another player that can't catch the pass out of the backfield.
Well,
the best back that they don't play enough, and I don't worry about size. The little kid from Stanford, toted the ball all the time. It is A.J. Turner.
They just don't feel like he can handle the contact and the punishment to be an every down back in the SEC. So let's take a look here at Mr. Henry. First of all, good Lord, in high school. It's ridiculous what he did in high school. As a matter of fact, he was at Yulee High School in Florida. You know where Yulee is? It's right there near Amelia Island. You go through Yulee to get to Amelia Island. I know this because I've gone through there once. South Carolina signed a player from his high school when he was a junior. And it was thought, boy, this is going to help South Carolina with Derrick Henry because they signed his teammate who came to South Carolina and played a little bit. But it didn't help South Carolina. It was a Georgia-Alabama thing. He originally committed to Georgia, then went to Alabama. In high school, he rushed for 12,000 yards in 4 years of high school. He averaged 253 rushing yards per game, had 153 touchdowns in high school in 4 years of high school ball. And then he goes to Alabama, and in 3 years, in fact, his last year when he won the Heisman, right? He won the Heisman.
Oh, yeah.
2,219 yards, 5.6 yards per carry, 395 attempts. He also had 11 catches for 91 yards. He scored 28 touchdowns.
There were games.
400 carry. He got 400 carries that year. 400.
Well, remember the last 3 games, he had 40-something carries a game.
I mean, the point is, South Carolina needs to find that guy. Clemson's got it in ETN. Georgia's always had it. You name the running back, they've got it. Since Mike Davis left South Carolina, they have not had that guy that they could give the ball to and say, get me 5 yards, get me 10 yards, get me a first down 2 yards. Really, you think about it. Mon Denson, you mentioned him. Yeah, he runs hard. But he runs in a straight line. There's no cutback ability there. Either he doesn't have the vision or he doesn't have the know-how. But to be a great running back, you just can't run straight ahead. You got to be able to feel and see the crease and cut it back. That's what the great ones do.
Here's the key, though. He hits the hole. One of the problems that South Carolina has.
Sometimes the hole's not there, and he's running right into it. Bam.
Here's the problem with South Carolina. Because, Mon Denson would be a great back in the NFL. Why? Because, these backs that South Carolina have are like Nebraska backs, the old Nebraska backs. When the coach in the NFL said, problem with Nebraska backs is they go 5 yards before anybody touch them. He said, in the NFL, here's your hole as I hold my hands like I'm clapping. Here's the hole in the NFL. At Nebraska, they think the hole is when they see the free safety. So,
because they had that huge, talented offensive line.
Well, that's what I'm saying, the big red thrashing machine they call it. But yeah, I like Mon Denson because he's a bowling ball. He's the type of guy, if you got a decent line in the fourth quarter, nobody wants to hit him. That was the thing with Henry in high school and college. A lot of guys make business decisions. Once he gets past the line of scrimmage, now, I'm not hitting this guy. It's the fourth quarter. I'm not going to get run over.
All right, a couple of other quick notes before we hit the break. As we mentioned, John Scott Jr. officially named today as South Carolina's defensive line coach, a native of Greer. Spent the last 2 seasons at Arkansas coaching the DTs under Chad Morris. He was the lone holdover from the Bielema staff. And he spent 15 and 16 with the Jets. Boy, I hope he's shaking that off before he comes to Columbia. That's not good to bring, the Jets.
Well, he had a couple.
With you.
He had a couple of guys make all pro with the Jets.
Well, he did. Muhammad Wilkerson was one, and anyway, he also coached at Texas Tech. Typical coach. He's been around a good bit. He was at Georgia Southern, and he gets a 1-year deal at South Carolina. I think it was for about $400,000,
$430,000.
Yeah, something like 1-year deal. Ray Tanner also said today that they did not have to pay a buyout for him to Arkansas, nor did they pay off the rest of Lance Thompson's contract, which I found interesting. Wonder how they were able to work that out. So he is on board, and he is already out hitting the recruiting trail. We'll talk about that when we come back here on Sports Talk. 800-956-7266 is the number. Eligible. All right, welcome back into Sports Talk, 800-956-7266. You can get right through tonight. I know a lot of you are watching basketball and perhaps doing some other things, but you can include us in your activities. 800-956-7266 is the number. History tonight. It's kind of a weird feeling. I never thought in our lifetime we would see this, but it has happened. Mariano Rivera, unanimous pick for the Baseball Hall of Fame. First time ever, 100% of the votes. That's, I mean, think about all the great players in baseball history going back to the very first Hall of Fame class. No one got 100% of the votes. You know, a lot of the old writers, stubborn, did not want to be that guy to push him all the way in like that. Everybody, you know, it was a badge of honor, I think, to some degree, for the Baseball Writers Association who votes on this to always have somebody not vote for a guy. Babe Ruth wasn't 100%.
No.
Hank Aaron wasn't 100%. Go on down the list. I mean, yeah, this is the first. And Mariano Rivera, a closer. Now, you know, there's going to be some people who will be upset about this because he is a closer. And, you know,
shouldn't be. He
only pitched in some time, you know, some outings. He might only get one out. Well, of course, with the Yankees, occasionally they would go to him for multiple innings, but not a lot, especially as he got older. But he is certainly revered as the greatest closer of all time with that unhittable splitter. Not only that, no one will argue this point. You might hate the Yankees, no question about that. A lot of people do. A finer person has never put on a baseball uniform. Universally admired, loved by baseball players, organizations, most fans, probably not in Boston, but most fans. Just a great guy. Just a great guy. And he is going in with 100% of the vote. The Hall of Fame class was just announced a few minutes ago. And he is going in to the class with Roy Halladay, Edgar Martinez, and former Yankee pitcher Mike Mussina. He is a former Yankee, but I'm going to give him his credit for being more with the Orioles. I'm not sure what hat he wants to wear going into the Hall of Fame. I mean, he had great years with the Yankees, but he also had great years with the Orioles. That is the group that is going in as elected by the Baseball Writers Association.
Here's the key to Mariano Rivera. If you look at a lot of relievers over the years, they have a dominant year followed by so-so year where they struggle, maybe early or late. He was so consistent. I mean, you look 30, 40-something saves every year. He never, because of that darn wicked slide or whatever he was throwing. That's why The Sandman was a great song for him. The big story here is Martinez, because at one point, you know, no, we're not going to have any designated hitters in the Hall of Fame. And that's where that was his bread and butter. He was the first, you could say, in our lifetime, dominant designated hitter.
Yep.
And he was dangerous.
I'm also looking, I haven't seen a breakdown of the voting yet or stories on like how many votes Barry Bonds got this time, how many votes Roger Clemens got this time. Did they get more? Are they, you know, are the voters being more receptive to vote for these particular guys? I'm looking for a story on that right now, but I haven't turned it up. But it's a history-making day today as Mariano Rivera will go into the Hall of Fame as a unanimous choice, first time in baseball history. That is something. All right, underway in Columbia at the Colonial Life Arena. And South Carolina's off to the early 7-2 lead on Auburn. Lawson with a three-pointer just a little while ago. And 7 fouls have been called in the first 2 minutes, 5 on Auburn. So the Tigers are out there hacking away a little bit. South Carolina with just a couple of fouls called on it to this point in the ball game. And almost 3 minutes in, and Silva has not been whistled for a foul.
Well, Silva has been the recipient of some fouls. And the key point very early is his offensive rebounding early in this ball game.
Yeah. Well, he's going to the line. He's drawing fouls, as you mentioned. He's already hit a couple of free throws, and he's got one basket. Auburn in the first almost 3 minutes has not made a basket, 0 for 3. Again, not a lot of shots getting up there because of the fouls and all that sort of stuff. We'll get an update from Willie P here in just a little bit from the arena as South Carolina seeks to pick up what would be their 5th SEC win of the season, which would put them 5-1. If they were to win this game 5-1, a third of the way into the conference slate, I don't think anybody would have thought that.
No. But this is a team that you knew when we saw the freshmen. We said early on when they were struggling, say give this team a little bit of chance as these youngsters learn how to shave. And so far, and I guess the key point, other than the youngsters developing, is Hassani Gravett really just gravitating and accepting that role as a sixth man.
Our phone number, 800-956-7266. If you want to join us tonight here on Sports Talk, talk some basketball, talk about Mariano Rivera and the others going into the Hall of Fame. Always can talk football, of course. We'll update recruiting for you here in just a little bit. Our poll question of the week, what do you expect Clemson's investigation into the 3 positive drug tests for Osterine to reveal? 60% of a little over 1,500 votes. 60% say truth will never be told. 29% voted the players did not know, and 11% voted that the players did know. You still have a couple of days left to vote there in our poll question. Couple of other things here. Brent Venables from Clemson, defensive coordinator. Darren Rovell, who, of course, reports on sports and money for ESPN, I think it is, reports that Venables now gets a $200,000 retention bonus as of today. Of course, he's making $2 million a year, already the highest paid assistant coach in the country. Throw another $200,000 on the heap there. Not a bad day to wake up and go, honey, guess what? We just picked up a cool $200,000 today just for being here. That's all I had to do was stay, and I got $200,000.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That ante's going to up because it's going to turn from just for being here, you get $200,000. For me turning down yet another chance to be a head coach, this is the bonus I want.
Yes.
So it's going to come to that after a while.
All right. Waiting on Clemson and Florida State to tip off down in Tallahassee tonight. The Tigers coming off that win over Georgia Tech, looking to build on that. And they played, for the most part, real well in that game at Little John a week ago. Tomorrow night, they jumped out to the big lead, withstood a run by Georgia Tech, rebuilt the lead in the second half. Tell you what the key is, too, as you talk about keys, and what got them off to the great start and carried them through that game, Marquise Reed. Came out early, had his shot going, was confident in his shooting, and never let up. Once he got it going, he made it his point to be the offensive guy. I think he was 10 of 13 from the floor the other night. They've got to get that kind of scoring from him to sort of be that leader offensively to get them going.
And plus he showed the threat of the drive. I think he really, when he first came back, he was sort of testing that knee. I think he's not worried about it now. That's the first game I've seen where he has not seemed to be, just concerned with that knee, and he was pushing off of it fast. So he gave the defense the threat of the drive as well as the three. Yes,
and the other thing, as we talked about for them, they've got to stay out of foul trouble because their bench is very thin. Once they dip down into the bench right now, they don't get Clyde Trapp has been good from time to time, but he's not a guy that by and large is going to go in and take over a game for you. Brad Brownell's having to go with a pretty short lineup right now. Got a little bit from John Newman III here and there, and a little bit from time to time out of Javon White, but really, and Hunter Tyson a little bit here and there, but not major minutes or major statistical contributions from those guys. So it's basically – 5 guys having to carry the load for Clemson right now.
And a guy that they have to watch out for because he moves well without the ball, and he can score when he does that, especially on layups and cut to the basket to scour. They got to give him some touches tonight as well.
Well, he's been offensively, he's been a nice surprise for them so far this year, averaging just under 9 points per game. I think more than what was expected going in. All right, we'll be right back.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Got recruiting coming up for you shortly. And by the way, Shiloh Sanders is going to announce his commitment at the top of the hour. No reason not to think it won't be South Carolina, since he just visited unofficially this past weekend. USC and Colorado State were his only two officials. It has appeared throughout that he likes South Carolina a lot, and they like him. That announcement coming up at the top of the hour. We'll let you know as soon as he puts it out there. Over at the Colonial Life Arena, things are going pretty well for South Carolina. Gamecocks are up 13-8, 13:48 to play in the first half. Gamecocks are shooting 60%. They've only taken 5 shots from the floor. That's because they've gone to the foul line and hit 7. They've gone to the foul line 7 times, and they have made 6. Auburn has been whistled for 9 fouls in less than 7 minutes. They've got 3 turnovers. The Gamecocks have been hit with 3 fouls and 2 turnovers in that same stretch. And again, Silva, so important, no fouls yet in 6 minutes, 2 for 2 from the floor and 4 for 4 from the line. He's got 8. Lawson's got 7. Nobody else has scored for South Carolina.
And then Frank Martin has seen some valuable thinking of trying to keep Silva in the game. So he's already decided that last trip down, he went into a zone.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Now it's 15-8 USC up on Auburn. Last night, the USC women won impressively against Missouri, bouncing back from their loss to Mississippi State in their previous outing. Here is some of what Dawn Staley said to the media following that victory.
Dawn, how did you like the pace of this game? It seems, Florida, LSU now tonight, you had the quick burst and then just kind of let them play catch up. Do you like that?
Yeah, we needed to play fast. We needed to speed them up. We wanted to show them different types of defenses. So we didn't have to, in the half court, just play all the screens and their offense, because they just read and react, and that's hard. That's hard to duplicate in practice. So we tried to just speed them up to make them play a little bit faster, shoot a little bit faster, execute a little bit faster than what they wanted.
Speaking of that pace and playing fast, how hard was it to kind of get into your guys' rhythm when there were so many stoppages in play?
I told our players I was proud that they made the adjustments. There was a lot of adjustments we had to make. And, I thought we controlled the controllables. Hopefully we'll continue to get better, and hopefully the game won't be hopefully the next few games won't be as many stoppages.
And how important was it to get this game behind you and kind of have the book kind of closed on what happened last year?
I really, honestly, the only time that I really got into last year's games was when I was asked. Other than that, I wanted to get a win from a quality opponent. Just got into the top 25, which was great. It was, another win in the top 25 to at the end of the season, this is going to be a great win for us, considering we've lost a whole lot of, to top 25s.
Coach, the moment at the beginning during the national anthem where you guys came together, what was the conversation like to have that moment, and what was kind of the statement behind that? That was bigger than the game itself. We wanted to show the crowd and the media and everybody that, how it was played last year, what was done and said and all of that is in the past. This is how we're going to move forward. And we mutually agreed that it would take place as it did.
I think you had 14 offensive rebounds and 18 second chance points. How impressed were you with their ability to keep things in perspective and also thrive off their turnovers? I think you forced 16 and you scored 23 off of those.
Well, those were, key points in how we wanted to emphasize how we win a basketball game. Obviously, they're a little shorthanded in the post. So we wanted to, make sure that we utilize our bigs in the paint and rebounding, and also just turning them over. We felt like our speed just from 1 to 5 gave us an advantage, and how we utilized that was just keep pressing, showing different presses, but being aggressive.
We had to play that way. Or if you play a half-court game against Missouri, they'll pick you apart every night.
All right, Dawn Staley, very pleased with her team's performance. Good bounce-back win for them. Played very well from the get-go last night against a good Missouri team and picked up a big SEC home victory. USC maintaining its lead over Auburn at 17-12 now, 12-19 to play in the opening half. USC still shooting it pretty well. 5 of 9 from the floor, 59%. And again, the Gamecocks are going to the foul line on a pretty regular basis here. On the boards where they got killed by LSU, out-rebounded by 20. They're only down by 1 board, 7-6. Auburn with 9 fouls called thus far in the ballgame. I'm sure that they're going to take a look at that at halftime and try and make some adjustments, and I'm sure that Bruce Pearl's not real happy about that. Again, Lawson has 7. Silva has 8. Gravitt has hit a 3 for South Carolina to make it 20-12. And so he's on the board, and Hasse has a deuce for South Carolina as well. To the recruiting report for tonight, of course, we're waiting on Shiloh Sanders to announce at the top of the hour, the son of Dion, South Carolina and Colorado State. Here's 2 official visits, and he was at USC unofficially this past weekend. Tennessee and Florida State were 2 others he considered among his offers. And by all accounts, he's a good-looking prospect and somebody who could come in and help South Carolina. I see no reason why he's not going to pick the Gamecocks. I would think, as of right now, they get him and they get DeQuantius Watts when he announces on signing day, or maybe a day or 2 before signing day. And that would give them 2 more in their secondary. I know Jamie Robinson is another one that they are recruiting out of Leesburg, Georgia, and it's South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Auburn for him. Spoke with his coach this afternoon, really didn't know all that much to add to it at this particular time. He is expecting coaches from those schools to come through this week, but as far as what the kid is thinking right now, who knows? Been some talk of him taking an unofficial to South Carolina this weekend. If that happens, that would help South Carolina. What I do know is that he hasn't been talking to much media, and I haven't seen anything with the South Carolina media with him in a long time. We've not been able to reach him in a long time. You know, that can mean something or it can mean nothing at all. I have seen him talking to both Auburn and Tennessee media recently after his visit. So we'll see what happens there. Right now, I don't have a great feel for Robinson, and that doesn't mean that he's not coming to South Carolina. It just doesn't mean I don't have a real feel for it right now. But I will say that when I don't get a good feel for it because of lack of communication, I tend to think he's not coming to the school that we're covering. John Scott, the new defensive line coach at South Carolina, scheduled a visit with defensive lineman Jaquez Sorrells of Winter Park, Florida on Thursday. That's according to the recruiting coordinator there, Kit Hill. He made his official visit to USC last weekend. Will Muschamp has had his in-home visit. Tennessee's been trying to make a late run at Sorrells. Jeremy Pruitt scheduled to visit tomorrow, but Hill said Sorrells has told UT he is set with USC, Penn State, and Alabama. He'll visit Penn State this coming weekend, Alabama the following weekend. Nick Saban, who according to Hill was due in last night, won't be in until next week, and James Franklin plans to visit early next week. Running back Michael Dukes of First Baptist, of course, visited Clemson this past weekend. Tigers are looking to add another running back to the class. Tony Elliott, who is from the James Island area, has been on Dukes for a while. His coach said that the visit went great, according to what Dukes has told him. That's John Waters. No commitment yet. He said that Coach Sweeney told him to think about it and go from there. But he said the visit was great. He went to Coach Sweeney's house and all that. And Waters said right now he's not sure what Dukes is thinking about regarding his future. Dukes also has taken officials to East Carolina and Syracuse. Coach is not sure if he'll take any more. The Orange called about him on Monday. Dino Babers had his in-home last week, and Syracuse is sending a recruiter back down to see him next week. Appalachian State is also involved. They were in last week, as was Elliott. We've got some more recruiting to tell you about after the top of the hour break.
Matt, I think I got my.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
I got you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I was out.
We're coming out. I get my fans themselves out of TV entertainment. One of the hottest, most dynamic, and of course, the best dancers in the world ever for you. Matter of fact, we're about to get some feedback. Put your hands together right now for your Carolina girls. Give it up for your Carolina girls. Come on, show your love.
Is that a Trey Mason Auburn jersey over there? Trey Mason Auburn?
What?
For Carolina, back in the lineup, number 4, Trey Campbell.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Now we're still waiting on the word from Shiloh Sanders, expected to make his college commitment announcement at 7 o'clock Eastern time via Twitter. Has not happened yet. And so we're still monitoring that for you here on Sports Talk. Let you know as soon as something comes down on that. Should be most any time, I would think. Meantime, over at the Colonial Life Arena, South Carolina has led the entire way. A lot of things happening for the Gamecocks in a positive way. Shooting has kind of cooled off here of late, and they have stayed out of foul trouble for the most part. Let's go to the Colonial Life Arena. Will Pelagic, easy for me to say, is there watching the Gamecocks. And so far, Will, they've done a nice job.
They have, Corn. They've kind of withstood some of the early foul calls that have come from the referees here. They called 6 fouls in the opening 2 minutes, and Auburn was basically having South Carolina shoot 1-1 just 5 minutes into the basketball game. Currently, at the 6-minute mark of the first half, Carolina with a 29-20 lead on Auburn. You mentioned the shooting. It has cooled off for them. They're shooting 45%, but before that, they were blistering with it. They're led by the 8 points of Chris Silva and 4 rebounds. He does have only 1 foul against him, but he has played 12 of the 16 minutes, at least to date, at least in this half. Auburn, like I said, is basically committed their 10 fouls over the course of their game so far. They're not shooting it well, 34% from the field. 0 of 9 from distance. They've really struggled there. Points in the paint, they do lead the Gamecocks 14-12, which is a surprising stat, but Gamecocks are rebounding well and also have gotten some real good second chance points, 7 points there, and they've also done themselves very, very well in transition. You mentioned they've led wire to wire. They lead by 10 now, and really the one thing that it really stands out to me is the fact that they have been able to kind of withstand a very ticky-tack foul type game.
Yeah, I'm surprised that, the shooting has cooled off, but I think that's negated by what you said before, second chance points, because I'm surprised that they've been able to offensive rebound as well as they have.
They have, and, it's weird. They have 6 offensive rebounds. Auburn has 6 offensive rebounds, and Auburn has been the beneficiary of some 50-50 balls that have gone their way, especially on their opening couple of possessions. They had one shot that went completely off the side of the backboard, which normally you would think would be a turnover for South Carolina, but it stayed in play and went right back to the man who shot the ball for Auburn, and they were able to finish it. And they've had basically the basketball equivalent, this is how I put it on Twitter, the basketball equivalent of puck luck. They've just had some of the better bounces, at least from that standpoint. But so far, so good for South Carolina as they lead by 9 with 5.5 to play in the opening half.
Yeah, good start, good run for them in the half. The other thing, too, is Auburn, Will, has not made a 3. They're 0 for 9 behind the line, which is somewhat surprising considering their guards. Is it just poor shooting on their part, or is South Carolina doing something defensively to take them off their mark?
A lot of their shots are ill-advised, Corn. I mean, they're not necessarily doing a good job with their screen and roll action. I think even on the defensive side, too, they've struggled with that in affairs. South Carolina's looks have been very much open looks, and from that standpoint, Auburn is really struggling to find open looks. Here comes an open 3, and they actually drain it. So as I say that, it ended up coming home to roost. But 30-24, the score in favor of South Carolina. 15 minutes played so far, and I think it should be one for South Carolina where if they can kind of keep the way this pace is going. The game is going toward their pace because they're using a lot of up-tempo stuff to try and break some of the initial press from Auburn. This game is being played in South Carolina's rhythm right now.
All right, my man, thank you. We'll catch you in a half hour in the last segment for an update going into the second half. South Carolina and Auburn, it's a good one over the CLA, 30-24. Clemson and Florida State should be underway.
7-6 Florida State early.
Okay, you got any details? Because the stat broadcast is not up and operating down
there.
Well,
this would be surprising. Clemson just took the lead 9-7, and Amir Sims hits a 3.
Well, we were talking about that off air, and we still have nothing from Shiloh Sanders, by the way. Talking about Clemson and needing some help from some others. He would be one. In ACC play, Sims had a very good November-December stretch, but he's averaging less than 6 points per game. For that matter, as a team in ACC play, Clemson's only averaging 59 points per game. Mm-hmm. I know Brad Brownell prefers a nice defensive pace and controlling things, but with this group of scorers that he's got, they can play in the upper 70s and 80s and scoring less than 60 a game in ACC play is not going to get it done for them. That's why they struggled out of the gate in ACC play. Plus, they were playing some. Well, you play Virginia, you're not going to score a whole lot. And Duke, of course, can
Virginia
sometimes
and
make it tough.
Those teams will slow you down.
Yeah. But yeah, getting more points from Sims would certainly be big for Clemson. The other thing I was going to point out in ACC play, going back to what we said earlier about it being an Iron Man 5 for the Tigers, and they have 6 players in ACC play averaging 22 minutes per game. And that would be Clyde Trapp would be the 6th man at 22. Then it's just it's a drop off. John Newman gets in for about 9 minutes, Hunter Tyson for about 8, Javon White for about 6. So he's really not using the bench very much now in league play.
Well, he's not comfortable with guys coming in and with their roles. And that's why this team in practice, those guys on the bench have to earn playing time by showing they know what kind of plays are going to be run when they're in the ball game.
All right, still awaiting something from Shiloh Sanders. Supposed to announce at 7 o'clock tonight. It's now 7:12 here in the East, and he has not announced. He put on his Twitter this morning when he announced that he was announcing, he put 7 p.m. and in parentheses EST.
Eastern Standard.
Well, you would think, unless that meant estimate.
No, that's
No, I know what you're saying. I know EST means Eastern Standard Time, but perhaps he was saying estimated time. Anyway, he has not announced anything yet. Again, I don't see why it wouldn't be South Carolina for him, considering they've been on him very hard. They've made it clear to him that they want him. Travaris Robinson, Will Muschamp have been out to see him. He was in this past weekend unofficially. He took an official visit. And, he has a nice list of published offers. But again, his only officials were to South Carolina and Colorado State. You would think South Carolina could win out in a head-to-head competition with Colorado State. Though Tennessee was in there for a while, he was supposed to take an official visit to Tennessee weekend before the last, but that got canceled for one reason or another. And, of course, Florida State was thought to be a factor with him as well, in large part due to his father's history at Florida State, but that never really materialized. So keep in mind here, too, if South Carolina were to get Shiloh Sanders, his brother is a big-time quarterback prospect in the 2021 class, Shadu Sanders. And so you would think that if South Carolina does end up with Shiloh Sanders, that would give them perhaps a leg up in that competition. Doesn't always work out that way. I don't know that the brothers are tied at the hip when it comes to where they want to play their college football.
The quarterback room would be too crowded, wouldn't it?
Well, no, 2021 is a couple of years down the road. Bentley will be gone. If he plays, Helinski will be a junior. So, no, it'll be time to bring in another one. Doty would be a let me see. Wait a minute. 19 would be freshman year. Yeah, Helinski would be a junior. Doty would be a sophomore. So it's time to bring in another one. You got to bring in a quarterback in every class. The best quarterback you can catch, you got to bring him in every class, I would say.
One in every class and one in every portal. But Auburn has tied things up now.
Have they really?
Yeah, it's 31 all late in the first half.
What's led them to that run?
Some missed shots by South Carolina, and Silva has been out of the game. So it's been one shot and done for South Carolina with Silva out. The offensive rebounding has kind of hurt. This time is Auburn is, and what Auburn is doing is as soon as they get that rebound, they're pushing it. They're spreading the floor and let guys just run to the corners, keep the middle open, and if they got an open three, they're canning it.
Yeah. I'm looking at some of the fans on their hands and knees begging Shiloh Sanders to pick their team on Twitter. Let's see if I can find some here that are good. Here's one guy. You'll look great in garnet and black, young man. I guess that's the only one so far. Come on, says another guy. Most of it is we're waiting on the news and it hasn't come down yet. Here's a Roll Tide roll, but I don't think Alabama's much of a factor here. All right, we'll be right back.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Well, still nothing on the Shiloh Sanders watch as we are 20 minutes past the announcement time for the young man to announce his commitment. Been looking at his Twitter, been looking at his Instagram, and there is nothing there yet. We'll continue to keep a watch on that. South Carolina and Auburn now locked up in a tight win, 37-36 over at the Colonial Life Arena. Silva's got 14 for the Gamecocks, 5 of 6 from the floor, 4 of 4 from the line, 6 rebounds. Just amazing. It shouldn't be amazing. When your best player is having a big game, you're going to have a chance to win. And he's having a big game thus far. They need him to stay out of foul trouble, stay on the floor. He's got to play 35 minutes tonight. They're going to have a chance to win. Gamecocks have cooled off to 41%, and they have an 8 of 13 from the line. Auburn, 8 turnovers to 4 for USC. The Gamecocks have 12 points off those turnovers. USC winning the rebounding battle, 20 to 19. Offensive glass, always important, and Auburn was 7 and South Carolina with 8, and pretty much a wash. 8 second chance points for Auburn, 7 for South Carolina. As for the Clemson game down at Florida State, Tigers are up 20-18, media timeout with 9:56 to play in the first half down in Tallahassee. And taking a look at some of the numbers there, Clemson shooting 47%, 43% for Florida State. It is Sims with 10, leading the Tigers, 4 of 7 from the floor. Thomas has 6. Mitchell has 4. They are winning, and Reed has not scored. He's only taking 2 shots.
You want him to get started, though. What was that Bill Russell used to say? You're paid to worry to be a coach, and you always worry when the wrong person is scoring a lot of points because you're not in the rhythm of how you usually play.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to get Reed cranked up.
Yeah. But, it's a good thing if you can still lead and halfway into the first half and you've got your leading scorer yet to come to get hot. He does have 3 rebounds and 2 assists. The thing about Reed is even when he's not scoring, he finds ways to help you.
Oh, yeah. And the key point is he's going to draw the defense out to him. And it's all well to the good if he's hitting that 3 because that opens up the lane for the big guys.
And Florida State's hit 5 of 8 from 3. They've hit 3 of their last 3 from the floor. That's helped them stay in this thing. Clemson is 2 of 6 from behind the arc. 20-18, Clemson leading. And we've got Kentucky on top of Mississippi State in Lexington. It's 24-13 in that one. As far as other SEC basketball tonight, besides the game here in Columbia and the game in Lexington, we have got on the schedule Texas A&M at Florida. It's going to tip off at 8:30 after the one on the SEC network involving USC and Auburn. And Ole Miss at Alabama, that's a 9 o'clock tip tonight. And ACC-wise tonight, you have got, besides Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame at Georgia Tech. You got a score on that one? I know you've been watching it.
No, I don't have it. Well, yes, I do. It's Georgia Tech 17, Notre Dame 11.
Mm-hmm. Wake Forest playing at Virginia tonight, and Duke, the 9 o'clock game, will play at Pittsburgh tonight. I think Rogers is still out for Duke, the guard.
I think so.
I think he is still out with that shoulder injury. All right, 800-956-7266 is our number. If you want to join in, our lines are open, and they have been open and available for you throughout the night. I know that we've lost some stations for basketball, but you can still, those of you who are with us over the airwaves or via the stream, you've got time to join us and room to jump on the program and share your thoughts with us. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention related to recruiting. This was reported by John Whittle from the Big Spur, a former professional baseball player, K.J. Woods from Fort Mill, is walking on with the USC football team this season. He's 6'4", 250, fourth-round draft pick of the Marlins back in 2013. He gave professional baseball 5 years. Now he's decided to go play college football. Reminds you of somebody? Whittle writes that USC's tight ends coach, Bobby Bentley, who recruits that area, has been in touch with Woods, working with him behind the scenes, and he's 23 years old. going to begin his college football
That's scary.
career.
That sounds like the old redhead with the Baltimore Ravens.
Hayden Hurst.
Yes.
That's what I said. Does it remind you of anybody? Very similar. I don't know if he was let me see if John had in here the position that he was playing in baseball. 6'4", 250. Let's see, spent 5 years in the minors. He's an outfielder. Was Sally League All-Star in 2015 with Greensboro. So he'll join the football program as a tight end. And South Carolina's had some success with walk-on tight ends. When you figure Hayden Hurst, Jacob August was a walk-on tight end. This young man, obviously, as a 5-year professional baseball player, has got tremendous athletic skills, and he'll come as an older guy, a mature guy, a guy who knows what it takes to take care of your body, mentally sharp, et cetera, et cetera. Everything that Hayden Hurst brought to the table. Now, when Hayden Hurst walked on, you didn't know what you had in terms of a football player. It took a little while to figure that out. Hayden Hurst was not 250 pounds, though, was he? Wasn't he more in the 220, 230 category?
I think it was 230 because he was like a huge wide receiver. Remember, he came in, he had to learn the other attributes of being a tight end, including blocking. But he had the speed. In fact, faster than a lot of tight ends.
And he had a good rookie year with the Ravens.
He did.
Had some injuries, didn't he?
Got banged up a little bit. Yes.
Yeah. All right, 800-956-7266. Attention diverted here as we wait for Shiloh Sanders to do something. I don't know if it's he's having any second thoughts. He's having a problem with his video. He's having a problem with his edit. You know how these kids are today. Some of them want to be drama queens when they put the word out. And, not saying that that's going to be the case here, but considering the flamboyancy of his dad, you would think that Shiloh Sanders is just not going to tweet it out and just say, hey, I'm going here.
He's probably holding the mic right now wherever they are, and his dad is talking. Dad, I'm ready to announce.
No. I don't think he's I could be wrong. I don't think he's doing a big deal like that. He just said, I'm posting my college commitment tonight at 7:00 Eastern time, and he hasn't done it yet and is driving everybody crazy. Who's sitting here waiting for him to finish this thing off. What would he bring to South Carolina? Well, from his own standpoint, he would bring a lot of athletic skills. Not only was he a cornerback in high school for a state championship team in Texas, he played offense as well. I think he played some wide receiver, had 5 interceptions this past season, 19 tackles. Maybe he's like his dad. He doesn't like to tackle a whole lot. Remember, the knock on Deion was, great cover guy, hard to beat in man coverage. Didn't particularly like to line up and hit you.
Well, here's the point about Deion. People don't understand. Deion, if you look at him, he had a lot of speed, but he had a strong upper body. One of the reasons people talk about his reticence to tackle, well, he covered so well, and he thought when the ball was in the air, it was his. So when if your mindset is to hit somebody, it takes away from your ability to turn and grab the football, and he'd rather grab the football. Plus, the one thing you saw about Deion, which I probably Muschamp would love if he had him as a player, is he'd give a shot to the guy before he let him get off the line of scrimmage. I mean, he'd always throw the guy's timing off. That was the big key.
Yeah. And the other thing, of course, he's got pretty good size, listed at 6'1", 194, and 184. And in previous conversations with him, what he told us that they like about him, South Carolina and the other coaches, what they like about him is he's got good length, and things of that nature, good cover skills, and, can hang there, with you from a speed standpoint. So he brings a lot to the table. Then there's the PR side of it. So, while Clemson will have Kirk Herbstreit and his 2 sons there, and he can, tout about Clemson on his airwaves on ESPN and all that, if this young man ends up at South Carolina, I mean, that should work to South Carolina's benefit in that when Deion is on Fox and the NFL Network, he'll be talking a lot about South Carolina and his son's progress down there and how the football team is doing.
It'd be interesting, all these defensive backs. We were talking about A.J. Turner moving to defensive back. We don't know if that's permanent. But does that mean that maybe Jam Williams goes from defense to offense?
It's a good question. Need to find some place where he can stay healthy and contribute. All right, the watch continues. Back in a moment.
Checking it.
3, 2, 1, go.
Yellow.
Come on, Tommy, you got it. 20 seconds left. 15 seconds. Travel 2 round trip tickets to Orlando, Florida. 6, 5, 4, 3.
Hey, I got you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I got you. Yeah, you ready to go on now, right?
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight's softball competition. On his head, we got back. He's headed in at 250 pounds and only 5'1". And on this end, we got Ty. He's a dripping weight, 90 pounds, and he's ready to make it happen. Best 2 out of 3 is going to win. Softball challenge. 3, 2, 1, go, guys. They're running. Boom, and it's a hit. Ty goes down. We're going to do it one more time. Or 2, depending on time you stay up. Best 2 out of 3. 1, 2, 3, go, guys. Here we go. One more time. One more time. Here we go. Let's make it hurt. Softball challenge. Here we go. This is the winner. 3, 2, 1, go, guys.
Still nuttin' honey on the Shiloh Sanders watch. One of my favorite cereals, nuttin' honey. You ever had that before, Pro? Yeah. Still waiting on that to come through. Now, 34 minutes past due for his commitment announcement, assuming it's going to come down on Twitter, but who knows? 800-956-7266. Clemson on a run, 11-1 over the last 2 minutes in Tallahassee. Tigers have sprinted to a 31-23 lead over Florida State. Seminoles, no field goals for the last 2.5 minutes. Sims continuing to play well, 13 points, 5 of 8 from the floor. He's got a rebound as well, and he is the only Tiger in double figures. Thomas has 9 and 6 rebounds and 3 assists, and Reed has 3 points to get on the board. So good start for Clemson. Tigers shooting 50%, 4 of 8 from 3. Only 2 turnovers for the Tigers, 4 turnovers for Florida State, 31-23. They've gone to halftime at the Colonial Life Arena. What was an 11-point lead for USC, Will Pelagic, is now a 1-point deficit for the Gamecocks as they trail 38-37 at the break.
Yeah, Corn, it really kind of turned in about a span of 2.5 minutes. They had a 30-20 lead at the 5:48 mark of the first half, and 2.5 minutes later, the game ended up being tied. And, you know, really kind of coincided with Alonzo Frink's entrance into the ball game. He really didn't bring them a lot, and really a lot of the Auburn offense kind of condensed down on him. Not trying to necessarily pick on him, but that couple of minutes really kind of turned the tide outside of the realm of South Carolina, and they really couldn't rebound after that. Auburn with a 38-37 lead, as you mentioned, at the half here. They're led by the 10 points of Bryce Brown, who basically leads all Auburn scorers. Chris Silva played probably the best half that he's played since SEC play started. 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 blocks, and he had some really good play down the stretch. And it looked like South Carolina was going to go into the lead, go into the break with the lead, but ended up throwing away an inbounds pass off of a timeout and got the ball back in Auburn's hands, and they were able to drive down the other way, get 2 free throws, and take that slim margin. And really, after having what I'd say the better run of play for about 16 of the 20 minutes of the first half, they find themselves down 1 to the number 19 team in the country.
You know, it looks like Bruce Pearl is thinking, you know, this Gamecock team with Silva in the game plays very methodical, and we got to do something defensively. And it seems like he's turned to shirts and skins. He's spreading the floor and just having individuals like Bryce Brown take guys off the dribble and see if they can just use their athleticism at certain positions to break down the defense.
And that's really the formula when they don't have Austin Wiley. They really don't have someone with an inside post presence that can really match what Silva brings on the defensive side. So you are seeing a lot of one-on-one. You're not seeing as much screen action. And really Auburn has made their living off of kind of just mucking it up, if you will. They're kind of getting down into the dirt right where South Carolina is and right where they stand. And they're basically playing South Carolina's game, at least in that latter stretch of the half, playing South Carolina's game better than South Carolina did. So once they kind of leaned in and started kind of getting in the mud with them, they were able to hang a lot easier, especially when the Gamecock shots stopped falling. You know, as we mentioned, their shooting was great early, but then they had a stretch where they missed 5 in a row. They went 1 for 7 at one point and almost 4 minutes without a field goal. Because of that, they're sitting right now where they need to be because they're not getting the kinds of open looks that they had earlier in the half.
Looks like on television, and it sounds like in your background, pretty good crowd on hand, and they sound like they're pretty rowdy in there tonight.
Yeah, you know, I kind of shortchanged it when we were inside the building about 10 to 20 minutes before the game, but it was very much a late arriving crowd. But the ones that have come here have really filled the building up very nicely. Among those here, Corn, you would be happy to know, at least from South Carolina fans' perspective, Brian Holinsky and Zach Pickens both sitting front and center in the Gamecock student section and have been acknowledged by the fans and those who are there. So they are continuing to kind of have the celebrity following, if you will, and fitting in as one of their own, so to speak.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Enjoy the second half, and we'll get back with you. Maybe hit you up one final time before we hit the top of the hour if there's any significant change in the ball game. 800-956-7266. Meantime, in Tallahassee, Florida State has cut the deficit to 4 at 32-28 at the under 4 timeout. 32-28, Clemson leading Florida State. Tigers trying to get to 2-3 in ACC play. And obviously, still nothing from Shiloh Sanders as we continue to wait for his
He's got to be on
commitment tweet.
He's got to be on Central Time. He's got to be.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I wonder if that EST that he put in his original tweet meant estimate and not Eastern Standard Time. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
small EST in a period, you would think so.
Well, it's EST in parentheses and an exclamation point.
Interesting. Yeah, it means to me he thought it was Eastern time, but of course we're talking about a kid that's out in Texas. That's why we're saying the Central Time deal might be in effect.
Right. All right. So South Carolina and Auburn about to tip it off in the second half. Auburn up now 38-37. Really important game for South Carolina. I mean, they all are, obviously, but coming off a loss, you're back home, got a good crowd, got the students involved for the first time since they've been back to school in mass, and a chance to get a quality, eye-opening kind of win at home. You got to go to Oklahoma State Saturday for that SEC Big 12 challenge thing. And that'll be tough. Always a tough place to play out there. And you'll be seeing Michael Boynton again. And then you got Tennessee coming into town next Tuesday night.
Next Tuesday.
So, you know, this is kind of to have to build on a great start in SEC play and maybe to continue it and be kind of a surprise. You got to take care of some business here while you got the opportunity.
Well, yeah, especially against a team like Auburn that's a little schizophrenic. And if you get them down in the second half, you got to keep your foot on the throat or they'll come back to haunt you. But this Tennessee bunch, that is a whole nother level when they have to play them on next Tuesday.
Yeah, they're very, very good. Number one team in the country. You know, so South Carolina truly being tested here by the schedule. And it's why they played a difficult November, December schedule, so that when they got to the meat of their SEC slate and played some of these top teams, they would be better prepared for it. Meantime, Kentucky continues to hold the advantage over Mississippi State at Rupp Arena, 32-23, 3:36 to go there. What'd you think of the USC women's victory last night? By the way, speaking of women's basketball, Amanda Beard's going to be with us tomorrow night, the Clemson women's coach. You might not have noticed, but that's Amanda Beard, Amanda Butler.
Amanda
Butler. Amanda Beard would be here if we were talking Olympic swimming. She was a swimmer, right?
Yeah.
Amanda Butler. Clemson women have won 5 straight ACC games. She's doing a marvelous job.
Oh, yeah. And the first time that they've gotten, I think they had 11 votes in the last AP poll for women's basketball. So I think they would probably be ranked around at 28-30 or somewhere in that range. The game last night, South Carolina played at their pace. You can't let Missouri get into the half court. They'll try to carve you up. They hit timely threes, stay in the game, and they're really tough on the boards if you let them. South Carolina, obviously, they're more guard-oriented this year, and you see that they have some good defense out front with their point guards. So they were able to steal, get turnovers, fast break baskets, and, of course, a bit of more focus on the three now. Now that they don't go inside to Asia, they have to depend a lot on the three, and they were hitting them at timely junctures last night.
All right, 800-956-7266, the number, if you want to jump on board with us tonight here on Sports Talk as we cover the basketball scene and talk about some football stuff as well. South Carolina now with a complete staff, with John Scott Jr. being officially announced today as a new defensive line coach, and he's already getting out and making some recruiting calls. He is supposedly a very good recruiter. I'll tell you what, though, it's going to be a good situation for him. Whoever took over that job for Lance Thompson, I think, is inheriting a pretty good bunch to work with. And, you know, good players make for good coaches, and also good coaches help develop good players into better players. We'll see how that marriage works at South Carolina. We'll be right back.
I'm back. Yep.
I hear you.
Thanks.
Jared Harper. The over foul is on 24, Anthony McLemore. That's his fourth. Second team foul. Time out. All right, fans, we're scanning the arena right now. First for the night, Jersey Mike's Lucky Road. Let's see you make some noise out there for your chance to be tonight, Lucky Road. I bet you section 110, row 21. You guys right here. You better get some Jersey Mike's. Take one, pass it down. It's a $5 gift card to Jersey Mike's. Of course, you can check out Jersey Mike's.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
It is Central Time from Shiloh Sanders. He just informed me that he meant for it to be 7 o'clock Central Time.
Okay.
So I'm telling you that EST, I think, was an estimate. Good for estimate. Of course, those of us here just looking at his Twitter.
Behind it if you want it to be that.
Period? Well, he put an exclamation point.
No, well, he should have put a period to make instead of abbreviation.
Yeah.
Instead of EST.
So it's going to be at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central Time. So likely we'll be off the air unless it pops like seconds before. Otherwise, we'll have the story for you on Twitter and on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. You can check it out there. So that clears up that mystery for the time being. To the other mysteries, and that is these basketball games. Clemson going into the half, 25 seconds to go in Tallahassee, 39-35 over Florida State. Florida State has come back to make this one close. Clemson's bigs are doing the job. Sims has got 13, and Thomas has 11 to go along with 7 rebounds. So he's having a nice game. Combined, they are 9 of 13 from the floor. Only 4 points from Marquise Reed. As hot as he was the other night, he's only 1 for 6 tonight. That was a 3-pointer. Trapp's giving him 5 points off the bench. Newman's come in and played 6 minutes off the bench, has not scored. Mitchell's got 6 points and 4 assists. Tigers are keeping the turnover down with only 4. Florida State only has 6 at this point. Skara has not scored. Has not scored. And Florida State got a very balanced lineup. They've got 9 different players scored. Florida State in the half, led by David Nichols with 9. And Clemson gets a tip in by Newman at the buzzer. Missed shot by Mitchell. Newman gets a tip, and Clemson leads by 6 at the break, 41-35. Tigers looking good there down in Tallahassee, shooting 50% from the floor. As for USC and Auburn, it too is a tight one. It's 47-46 Tigers, 15:44 to go in the ball game. South Carolina's got off to a great start shooting the basketball, has cooled off to 40%. Auburn, which started off slowly, has gotten up to 45%. It is a 9-9 game in the second half, so they've been matching one another. Silva's got 20 on the night, 7 of 8 from the floor, 6 of 6 from the line. He's already got a double-double with 10 rebounds and
4 block shot.
4 block shot, 1 personal foul. He's just made a free throw to tie it. So he's got 21 and 10. He's having a big night. Question is, who's going to pick him up? Bryant is 0 for 7 from the floor in 21 minutes. Obviously, that can't continue. Kotar, who came in off the bench tonight, 5 points in 11 minutes. He's got a couple of rebounds. Frank has 1 point in 1 minute. Hase's given him 4 points in 18 minutes. Campbell's got 3 points. Gravitt's got 6, and Lawson's got 7. So Silva needs some help from somebody. Somebody else has got to get hot.
You would think it would have to be Gravitt.
He's only taken 4 shots.
That's the thing. He's got to be more aggressive. Probably needs to take it to the hole.
That's always a smart thing to do, if you get that chance. But, he has improved his outside shooting. He has more confidence in his outside shooting. I don't think Martin has any concerns when Gravitt pulls up with a 3. I think he feels like that's a good shot. What else do you have on the scoreboard you got in front of you?
Mississippi State is down 8 to Kentucky at the half, 34-26. That game is at Rupp Arena, of course. And Notre Dame is now overtaking Georgia Tech at the half. Georgia Tech at one time held 10.8, and Notre Dame
Right. Now that we had this historic night in baseball, now have the first ever former player elected unanimously to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Something that really should have been done for who knows how many other players over the years. How do you not vote some of the greats unanimously in the Baseball Hall of Fame unless you just have a grudge against them? Got to deal with a few other factors. Pete Rose situation and steroid era players. What do you think now that they will do moving forward, now that they have checked off this box? First unanimous guy, check. That's done. Now we can clear the boards and allow for others. For example, who else? Who would be the next one to come up in that category? It might be a few years. I'm thinking like a Mike Trout in another 10, 15 years. When his time comes up.
If it stays that way, if he stays consistent.
He continues to have the kind of career. I mean, who knows who'll be the next one to come up to be considered like that. But now that we've cleared that hurdle, there's other things that baseball needs to address related to the Hall of Fame. Personally, I think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. I think the Hall of Fame is you should be judged by what you do on the field as a player or a coach or a manager, your contributions to the game. It's never, ever proven that when he gambled, in a way that affected his decision-making for the Reds when he was their manager. Never, I don't think ever in question. He just broke one of the long-time laws of baseball in the locker room. There's no gambling on baseball, period. I think it's time that hatchet be buried and the all-time hits leader gets welcomed into the Hall of Fame.
But it's sad to say, but I can see Rose getting into the Hall posthumously.
Dude,
I'm serious.
That'd be a shame.
Some of these guys just old, long-time grudges. The steroid era, I think, as we see more younger baseball writers get in it, there may be some caveat when they put their plaques up. Maybe it's an asterisk or something. They were in the steroid era. And so I can see that happen. Because when you look at guys like Palmeiro and Bonds, they were good before they do. So, just think about what they did before they do. Clemens is another one, yeah.
But, I'm not defending what they did. For the most part, there were no rules in baseball against using that stuff. There weren't. They had no rules against using performance-enhancing drugs or anything like that in baseball. They eventually developed rules and said, this is against the rules and you can be punished for it, et cetera. Same thing in college sports or any level of sports, And as time moved on and people started using it and people in the position of management realized, hey, this is affecting the game and affecting these players in a certain way. We got to do something about it. Plus the health ramifications. But, these guys were taking that stuff at a time when it was, readily available. And their argument would be, too, go back into the 50s and 60s and go through a baseball locker room, look at the greenies and the other pills those guys were taking, some prescriptions, some not. But they were taking this stuff to keep them, a late night game and an afternoon game the next day or better. Those guys were popping all kind of stuff. Not to mention the flow of alcohol. in the locker room after the games back in those days. And the cigarettes. It's a different era. As baseball has transgressed.
Aaron, last few years in the majors played back in Milwaukee. He was in the dugout. Kurt Gotti was doing the game of the week. He said, Hank, don't do that. Hank is smoking a cigarette in the dugout, and he's over 40 years old. He puts the cigarette out and goes to home plate and hits home.
I know. Well, listen, I mean, we don't have to go that far back. Go back to Joe Morrison in the 80s, standing on the USC sideline.
Oh, yeah.
Keeping cupping a cigarette in his hand. All right. Shiloh Sanders just DM'd me. Says he's got the flu, so he was kind of out of it when he put his thing up. But he said he is good to do it in about 3 minutes. So look for the Shiloh Sanders announcement coming your way on a Twitter page near you in just a couple of minutes. We'll talk more about that tomorrow night. And South Carolina, Auburn, we leave you with the Gamecocks up 52-49. Silva now with 23-12. The old man's having a big night at the CLA. Make that 54-49. That'll do it. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.